Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to cut through all that noise, really distill the essential insights, and basically arm you with the knowledge you actually need. Forget the information overload. We're about getting to those, crucial nuggets that help you feel properly informed. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the iPhone 16. I mean, there are new phones coming out constantly, right? So much buzz. How do you really figure out if a device lives up to all the hype, or maybe more importantly, if it's actually the right fit for you? Is this iPhone 16 truly the ultimate every person's flagship, or do those compromises still hold it back a bit?
That's exactly it. That's the core question we really want to help you answer today. Our mission really is to get past the marketing fluff, sift through those expert reviews, dig into the specs, yeah, but also tap into what real users are actually saying out there. We'll look at its strengths, which are definitely there, but also acknowledge the limitations and try to pinpoint exactly who this phone is well really designed for.
Okay. And we've pulled together a pretty rich stack of sources for this, everything from really granular tech analyses, benchmark reports, all the way to direct user feedback from places like Reddit and other forums. So, ready to unpack the iPhone 16 with us?
Let's do it.
All right, let's get right into it. First up, let's talk power. What's actually powering this thing? Because under the hood, the iPhone 16 seems to be packing some serious muscle. We're talking about Apple's new A18 chip. It's built on that cutting-edge 3-nanometer process, got a 6-core CPU, a 5-core GPU, and 8 gigs of RAM.
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is that this isn't just like a small incremental bump we sometimes see, that 3-nanometer process. It's not just about making it smaller. It's key to how power efficient the A18 is, which means, your phone runs cooler, battery lasts longer, even when you're really pushing it. Plus, this chip is very clearly engineered with AI in mind. It delivers something like a 30–40% faster CPU and GPU performance compared to the A16, and it comes with a much improved neural engine specifically for handling AI tasks right there on the device.
Okay, 30–40% faster. That sounds significant. To
Yeah.
give you a real sense of that power, maybe put some numbers on it. Expert reviews are showing Geekbench 6 scores for the iPhone 16, around 3301 for single core and about 8033 for multi-core. Now, for those of you who follow this stuff, you'll know that's actually outpacing some of the top Android flagships out there. So what does all this mean for you holding the phone? It just means a seriously fast and responsive experience, like really fluid.
Exactly. It translates to, well, a phone that feels almost instantaneous. No waiting for apps to load, no stuttering when you're gaming, just a really snappy feel that probably makes your older phone feel, well, pretty sluggish in comparison.
Right. So we've got the muscle covered. But what about the brains, the smarts? That seems to be where the iPhone 16's AI capabilities really start to change how we interact with these things. It ships with iOS 18, obviously, and it's fully compatible with Apple Intelligence, though, that's set to arrive a bit later, late 2024. So this isn't just about speed anymore. It's about adding a new layer of intelligence.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that improved neural engine we mentioned, think of it as the chip's dedicated coprocessor just for AI. It allows things like real-time language translation or recognizing objects in photos to happen almost instantly, right there on the phone, without needing the cloud all the time. This integration brings genuine on-device generative AI features, things like sophisticated writing tools, smart summaries for your notifications, and this visual intelligence built right into the camera. And those unique vision features, they're tied to that new camera control button, making AI image analysis feel really seamless. The phone just kind of understands what it's looking at.
That sounds incredibly powerful, almost futuristic in a way.
Ugh.
But you mentioned Apple Intelligence rolling out late 2024. Does that mean, well, are all these cool AI features going to be available everywhere right away? I'm thinking for a listener in, say, Europe, how big a drawback is that delay right now? And what's the chance those features will arrive later? Is it maybe a deal breaker for some people?
That's a really crucial point, yeah. Some AI features are reported to be delayed in certain regions, like the EU. It seems mostly due to regulatory hurdles they need to clear. So for users there, it does mean the full AI package won't be there on day one. Now, Apple's definitely working on it, but there's no firm timeline for when those specific features will be unlocked region by region. For many, I think the core performance boost and the existing smart features will still be a huge upgrade. But if those cutting-edge AI tools are the main reason you're thinking of upgrading right now, it's definitely something you need to factor into your decision.
Okay, good to know. Let's shift gears slightly. Battery life. Always one of the biggest questions, right? How long does this thing actually last? The iPhone 16 seems to boast genuinely improved battery performance.
Yeah.
We're seeing specs like up to 22 hours of video playback. And for the Plus model, that jumps even higher, to an impressive 27 hours.
Yeah, and that 22-hour number, it isn't just a spec sheet figure. For a lot of users, it means maybe for the first time, you can genuinely leave your charger at home for a full day. Or maybe even stretch to 2 days with the Plus model. Many reviewers are reporting comfortable all-day use in the real world, lasting well into the evening. And user feedback really backs this up strongly. We actually saw one Reddit user talking about their 16 Plus lasting over 32 hours on one charge.
Wow, 32 hours.
32 hours, yeah. That's a massive jump for a lot of people. It fundamentally changes how you think about keeping your phone powered up when you're out and about.
That is incredible. I mean, I remember packing like 3 power banks for a weekend trip just a few years back. That kind of longevity is genuinely transformative for someone who's constantly on the move. And okay, when you do need to recharge, how's that look? The iPhone 16 supports up to roughly 39W wired charging, even though it's sometimes advertised at 45W. Plus, you still get the 25W MagSafe and the Qi2 wireless charging standard. So, plenty of options to top up quickly.
Exactly. You're pretty well covered for charging speed and convenience.
Okay, so with all that power, those smarts, the great battery, the next logical question is the camera, right? How does it handle the creative stuff? Let's turn to the camera system, because it seems to have some genuinely interesting new tricks up its sleeve. The iPhone 16 features that dual lens setup, a main 48-megapixel fusion-wise lens, and a 12-megapixel ultra-wide that now has autofocus for macro shots. But here's where Apple did something clever this year, that new vertical alignment for the lenses. What's that about?
The vertical alignment. That's what enables spatial photos and videos. Think of it like capturing moments with a kind of 3D depth effect. So later, if you view them on something like an Apple Vision Pro or another compatible VR headset, it feels more like you're stepping back into that memory. It adds dimension.
Interesting. So it's future-proofing for that spatial computing world?
In a way, yes. And beyond the lenses themselves, the physical controls got an upgrade too, which makes using the camera feel much more intuitive, more tactile. That familiar old mute switch, gone, replaced by the new customizable action button. And there's also a totally new dedicated camera control button on the right edge. It's designed to quickly launch the camera, let you adjust exposure, and actually snap photos or videos with a physical press. Users seem to be overwhelmingly positive about these new buttons. They really like the added control.
That makes sense, having dedicated hardware controls. But, with new buttons, are there any early reports of people finding them tricky? Like, is there a learning curve, or maybe folks accidentally pressing them during normal use?
That's a fair question. Most of the feedback suggests the learning curve is pretty minimal. The action button is basically just a new shortcut you can set, and the camera control button feels a lot like a traditional camera shutter, so it's quite intuitive. We haven't seen many reports of accidental presses, mainly because they need a deliberate action, unlike the old mute switch, which, could sometimes get toggled in your pocket. It seems like one of those small quality-of-life improvements that once you get used to it, you kind of wonder how you managed without it.
Gotcha.
Oh, and plus the photographic styles feature. It's enhanced now with a live control pad, giving you more precise, real-time adjustments for color and tone right as you're framing your shot.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about what you're actually looking at and holding every day.
Yeah.
The display and the design. The display itself is a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED. Sounds familiar, but promises sharp, bright visuals. Peak brightness is quoted at 2,000 nits.
Yeah, that 6.1-inch OLED is lovely, and that 2,000 nits peak brightness. It might sound like just a number, but it means you can actually see your screen clearly, even on a really bright sunny day. Watching videos outdoors becomes viable. It's a small thing, but a real upgrade for people outside a lot.
True, screen visibility outdoors can be a pain.
Definitely. And in terms of the build, you're holding a pretty durable device. It's got that ceramic shield glass on the front, an aluminum frame, and the usual IP68 water resistance. And, speaking of the build, Apple seems to have made some quiet progress on sustainability too. That ceramic shield is tough, yes, but the internal design is apparently more modular now. This makes repairing things like the battery and the back glass significantly easier and potentially cheaper, which is great for extending the phone's lifespan.
Hold on, that focus on repairability is actually really interesting. Is this a genuine shift we're seeing from Apple, given their history? Or is it maybe more of a token gesture? Like, how much easier is it really for an average person or, say, an independent repair shop to swap out a battery now?
It honestly appears to be a genuine shift, yes. While it's not like they're sending you a DIY kit in the box, the increased modularity, especially for common repairs like the battery and back glass, is a significant improvement over past designs. It seems to drastically reduce the complexity and maybe the cost for repair shops, makes it more likely that people will opt for a repair instead of just replacing the whole phone. It certainly points towards a more repair-friendly design philosophy going forward, which is encouraging.
That is good to hear.
Oh, and for those who like a bit of color, the iPhone 16 comes in some new bold options like ultramarine, teal, and pink, and it weighs about 170 grams, so pretty standard feel in the hand.
Okay. Now, we know no device is perfect, right? It's important we talk about where the iPhone 16 makes some, let's call them strategic trade-offs, especially when you compare it to the Pro models or maybe some high-end Android competitors.
Absolutely. And a key one to note here is the display's refresh rate. While the screen itself is beautiful, sharp, bright, it maintains a 60 hertz refresh rate. Now, many competitors, even on phones that aren't their absolute top-tier flagships, are offering 120 hertz these days. And that faster refresh rate provides a noticeably smoother scrolling experience. You really see it when you're quickly flicking through social media feeds or playing certain games.
Right, that 60 hertz versus 120 hertz is a common point of comparison.
It is. And you also won't find a dedicated telephoto lens for optical zoom on the standard 16. That's still a pro feature. Same goes for ProMotion, which is Apple's term for the adaptive high refresh rate, and the always-on display capability. Those are differentiators for the Pro line.
Okay, and what about the port? It's USB-C now across the board, which is great for convenience. But there's a difference in speed, isn't there? The standard iPhone 16 is limited to USB 2.0 speeds, right? Around 480 megabits per second. Unlike the much faster USB 3 speeds on the Pro models, how much does that actually impact a user? Say, if you're transferring those large spatial videos you mentioned earlier.
That's a really key distinction, yeah. For most day-to-day things, like charging the phone or maybe syncing a few photos, USB 2.0 is perfectly fine. You probably wouldn't notice. However, if you're someone who regularly transfers large files, think big 4K video projects, massive photo libraries from a trip, or yeah, those new spatial video files to your computer, those USB 2.0 speeds will feel noticeably slow. It can feel like a bit of a bottleneck compared to the Pro models. It's definitely not a deal breaker for everyone, maybe not even most people. But if you're a heavy data mover, you might find yourself wishing you had the Pro's faster transfer rates.
Makes sense. A potential bottleneck for specific users.
Exactly. And, digging into user feedback, we have seen some minor critiques pop up. Things like occasional lag with Face ID recognition or some small UI hiccups here and there. Though, to be fair, these often seem less common after the first few software updates land. We also saw some mixed opinions specifically on the budget variant, the iPhone 16, if that's something listeners are considering. Users generally loved its battery life, but some found the AI features maybe less impressive or useful in their daily routine than they'd hoped.
Okay, so bringing it all together, we've covered performance, AI, battery, camera, design, and some of those trade-offs. What does all this mean for you, the listener? And how does the iPhone 16 stack up against that initial question we posed? It seems like it really does elevate Apple's non-Pro lineup quite significantly this year. It's bringing truly flagship-level performance, that seriously impressive battery life, those innovative new hardware controls, and strong AI readiness to a wider audience than before.
I think that's fair. For you listening now, if you're maybe upgrading from an iPhone 13 or a 12 or even something older, this is going to feel like a massive transformative jump in performance, in features, across the board. It really does position itself as one of the best all-around phones you can get in 2025, especially if your priorities are strong on-device AI capabilities, that stellar all-day or multi-day battery life, and a really slick camera experience with those new spatial options. And crucially, if you don't necessarily need those specific pro-tier specs like the 120 hertz display or a dedicated telephoto lens.
However, and there's always a however, isn't there? If that super smooth, buttery display feel for gaming and scrolling is really high on your list, or if you're serious about photography and need that optical telephoto zoom, or if you're constantly moving huge files and need those ultra-fast USB-C transfer speeds, then yeah, the Pro models, or maybe even looking at some alternatives from other brands, might actually be a better fit for what you specifically need.
Precisely. It's about matching the device's strengths to your personal priorities.
Okay, so we've taken a pretty comprehensive look at the iPhone 16 today. We've pulled insights from the expert reviews, the tech specs, and crucially, from what real users are saying out there to hopefully give you the clearest picture possible.
Yeah, hopefully this deep dive helps you feel genuinely well-informed about whether this particular device aligns neatly with your specific needs and what you value most in a phone.
As you weigh up your next tech decision, maybe don't just think about the spec sheet, the numbers. Think about this instead. Beyond just the list of features, How does a new piece of technology like this genuinely enhance your daily life? Does it free up your time somehow? Does it spark your creativity? Does it just make your everyday interactions smoother, more joyful? What kind of experience are you truly seeking in your next device? That's maybe